Okay, can I have a mic check? Just somebody tell me if it's too loud or too quiet. I'm just gonna assume everything's okay. So, this is going to be a small tier list about just ranking all these superhero movies individually. So, just a quick rundown of what this all means. You should already know. Uh, it's not uncommon. S is basically the highest tier. In fighting games, whenever you rank somebody, just a bunch of characters, this is usually the kind of list that you have. You have S tier, A tier, B tier, D tier, F tier. So S is basically super powerful, um, pretty much broken and unfair. Ideally, in a game, you wouldn't want to have anything in the S tier, but this isn't a game, so S tier is going to be for pretty much perfect and hardly any flaws. A is a really good movie, and B is just middle of the road. Like, it's good, but there's not really much special about it. C is you can watch it and enjoy it, but it's really a specific taste. And D tier is ideally you wouldn't want to have a D tier, but I'm ranking a lot of things, so just to keep everything more spread out, I'm including it because it makes more sense with a large amount. And F tier is just god awful. You would never want to watch this. So let's just get into it. I think the best place to start would be Superman the movie. Um, Superman the movie was basically the very first superhero movie, so it set the standard, and it's a really good movie. You can watch it several times over, but it was the first, and it didn't have any mistakes to learn from. It made every mistake first, but it didn't make much of them, so it did a good job playing it safe. It didn't go too far out of the lines, and well, that's debatable, but it did a good job just as a superhero movie on its own, and without anybody else to look to. It just setting the bar. It did a really good job, but in today's standard, it's not an A, it's not an S. I could understand if you put in an A, but S for Superman doesn't really make any sense, so it really only works as B. So next we can move on to the sequel that came right after, which is Superman 2, which there are several different cuts to this movie simply because of the fact that Richard Donner signed on to two movies that would be filmed at back to back. But after Superman 1 wrapped, um, the producers didn't really like him, so they had to move him out. And because of that, the movie really suffered. So, like, it's not bad because of that, because they did a good job afterwards, but you can see that the worst parts weren't Richard Donner. Because that same director, I think it's Lester, I forgot his name, but I think it's Lester. He did Superman 3 and 4, which are nowhere near the same quality. So because of that, I think it's only fair to put this in C tier because Richard Donner's directing does put a good job on it, and his cut is, in my opinion, superior. And because of that, like it can't be higher. It certainly isn't better. So You can argue for it being the same quality. And if you're talking about the Donner cut, you could even say it's better. But just as is, it's not any improvement. And Superman 3, garbage, absolutely terrible. I don't know what they were thinking. There are some nice scenes in it, but a few nice scenes here and there that really don't work in context are just terrible. Like they really just focused on the campiness that was like the first two films had a lot of seriousness to them. It wasn't all camp. It's there. The camp of course is there, but it had a lot of heart to it. There was stakes. There was a reason everything happened. It wasn't just, hey, look at me, I can fly. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention, but this movie here set a very good example for flight in movies for a while, because this was the first one that actually did it, and did it convincingly. So, and here it's just not anywhere near as good. Obviously, it's in the F tier. It's garbage. Along with Superman 4, which they just pretty much every single flying scene is the same exact as Superman the movie, which I don't understand why they just gave up. They probably just said, you know what, it's Superman. It's going to make a crap ton of money anyways. Let's just put it together, chop it up, and give it to the public and pretend it's a movie, which it's not. It's terrible. Don't watch this. I strongly again. It's pretty good. It's not. If it is C tier, I haven't decided on this one, but if it is C tier, it's certainly not better than Superman 2. It's way too long, and the length of the movie just really hurts it, because if it was shortened down to things that only mattered, like if it took out his son and it just focused on Clark and Lex and then Lois, then it would have worked. But they have all these subplots, like Lois's new boyfriend, and Clark has a son, and he like a bastard son at that, which is just too much. They don't focus on anything enough. It's just kind of there, and because of that, it can't be as good as these, because it's just trying, and it's in the same universe, and they do a good job putting it there, and I do think it's respectful, but as a good movie, it's just not. It's nowhere near. It doesn't compare. But it certainly is better than Superman 3, Superman 4, because to me, those movies don't exist. Anyways, Batman. I don't know. I really don't know, because it is a really good movie. You know what? I'm putting a nest here. It's a really good movie, and Michael Keaton and like they all do a good job putting this movie together. It only makes sense to put it in the S tier, because there's really nothing wrong with it. Like, sure, you can poke at it and find things that are wrong with it that you don't really like, but overall, it's just pretty perfect. The way that they handled his origin, they don't flash back to his parents getting killed. It's only ever really referenced, with him visiting the grave and just, well, not the grave, but the place where they were murdered, and just putting some flowers, trying to be discreet about it, hoping nobody notices, and then just walking away. And then the part whenever Joker turns out to be the one who killed his parents, that isn't the way I would have done it, but for the story it's trying to tell, it certainly does a good job. And then that leads us to its sequel, which is Batman Returns, which I would put in the D tier, because personally, this is my opinion, but I don't like it. It's not bad, but it's just not good. It doesn't have the same charm that Superman Returns does, or the first Batman did. It's a really strong step down. Catwoman is done really well, but other than that, that's not enough to put it in a higher tier like C tier or B tier. It's I can understand if you put it in B tier, but I wouldn't put it in A or S. So to me, it's D tier, but I just don't like it. Like the whole thing with Penguin and Santa Claus, it doesn't work for me. So I'm just gonna check and see what everybody else is saying. Okay, so this brings us to let me be unorthodox here and see what else I can pick. Let me pick another movie. Let's do Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass is fun. It's not really that special, but it does. You know what? Yeah, I'm gonna put this in A tier because we need to fill these tiers, and Kick-Ass does a really good job just with the heart of our main character who doesn't really have superpower, but just feel like a superpower is really poetic. And by the way, this book, well, not this book, but this movie takes from the book almost exactly. And anytime you do that, because the comic book's already great, so just take that, take it off the page, put it on a film, you pretty much win just doing that. But what's keeping it from S tier is just those few changes that it did make kind of took away from me. It doesn't hold up. It's not as bad as like what Watchmen did, but it does keep the story and it keeps it simple and it doesn't try to stray too far. So speaking of Watchmen, let me put that in here. Watchmen, B tier. The same kind of reasons as Kick-Ass, where it takes almost directly from the page and it just adapts that story in a very nice way. Like it almost is seamless the way it does it until the very end when it takes its own path, which I understand why, but I do think the alternate ending that they chose was just a poor idea. Like, if you're going to change it, don't do what they did with the whole atomic bomb thing, where they blame it on Dr. Manhattan. And I feel like the original ending would have been much better. Just like, because at least then they would have been sticking to the comic and just not straying from it. So I think they took a risk with that and it didn't pay off. But other than that, it's a great movie. It's certainly worth a watch. Let me get another F tier. There's a lot of them. Howard the Duck. Terrible. Don't watch it. I'm not going to say anything about that. I don't have to. You already know. Deadpool. There's a lot of things that they could have done wrong with him. And ideally, he's not really that funny. I mean, of course he's funny, but a lot of, like, modern Deadpool comics, they just overdo him, and it's not entertaining. It's just him being a dumbass. Like, Deadpool needs to have heart, and he needs to have a reason to keep going. Here, they did a really good job, especially with having, I don't know, I only know her as Lee from Gotham, but her character here really drives the story, and it gives him more to fight about, something to fight about other than just, these guys are bad, I'm going to stop in my own way. So just having something else to drive the story forward other than just him being a dumbass really works. Since we're talking about Deadpool, it only makes sense to bring in Deadpool 2, which is a step below it. I think it certainly doesn't capture a lot of it, but I do think some elements are certainly better, but it does a lot of the same. And with sequels, you never want that. You never want to do the same and just repeat what the first one did, because you're not going to do it better. You might think you will, but you probably certainly won't. So because of that, I think it's only slightly worse. I do think, well, with the Juggernaut story and the Fire Fist story, which, I mean, they're the same story, but, you know, because Juggernaut, like, what did he do? At least he's faithful looking. Like, it doesn't stray too far from it, and it just keeps the Juggernaut as the Juggernaut. I'm just okay. You know what? Let me bring this in so we can get it out of the way. Last Stand. Uh, that's a D tier. Well, I'm gonna put this in C tier as well, because let me bring now. I'm just gonna talk about this one. I'm just talking about Juggernaut. Um, that was one of the things that it really messed up. They took a meme from the internet and just made that the character. You don't do that. You should never do that. If they did that for Deadpool, it would have never worked. It just wouldn't have worked. You can't have that. You can't have your main character, well, not main character. This was a very side character, but you can't have a character literally be a meme to be a meme. It's pointless and it's dumb. But let me talk about the actual movie. Comparing it to the rest of the X-Men, it's really not that bad. I don't see why it gets a bad rap. I guess there's a lot of inconsistencies whenever we bring it up, like how Professor X died and how he came back and all that. But, oh, and how they killed Cyclops just with no reason at all, and how Jean just turned. There's a lot wrong with it, but it's not that bad. I don't think it's that bad at all. I think it's certainly at least a C tier. So, X-Men. B tier. It's not that good. I mean, it certainly set the bar at the same time as Spider-Man did for superhero movies. These two movies came pretty much at the same time, and they were the first ones whenever superhero movies were still risky to do, and you just shouldn't do them, because you're not going to be Superman the movie or Batman, especially after this year. It's a bad idea, because, well, I mean, just because of the bad rap that this movie gave it and this movie gave it, I'll talk about those here in a bit, because after this, nobody wanted to do it, because this was really the only good one at the time. Superman the movie was good, but it also had a bad reputation because of the whole spinning around the Earth thing, and that just made them all seem campy. Until Batman came around and said, "No, we're not all campy," and then this movie came around and said, "Yes, you are," and that just really slaps it in the face with it, and it just ruined it. But X-Men came around and said, "No, we can do it, and we can do it right," but there's still a lot wrong with it. But it's fun, and it kind of has the same kind of excuse that Superman the movie has, where it's kind of the first. At least in this generation of them. So, it gets a pass. And X2 is A tier. Because it takes everything X-Men did, and it just learns from it and improves it and makes it even better. There's nothing that this movie does that's worse than the first one. It's either the same or just better. So, that gets into the A tier. What's stopping it from the S tier is just it's not special. I mean, it is special, but it's just not memorable. Like the Nightcrawler fight scene, but like the story is very simple and just not much. But yeah, anyways, Batman Forever. Why? They brought Jim Carrey in just to be Jim Carrey, and that is probably why the Sonic movie's not going to work. That is why Jim Carrey has a bad time finding a job. Well, a good job. He can find a job anywhere he wants, but he's not going to find a good job to do, unless it's handed to him by accident. So, and Tommy Lee Jones as Two-Face. Like, nothing about this movie was really good. There are a few select scenes, but it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It's the exact same thing here. Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, and they take the good story too. I don't know if this one came first or Heart of Ice from the animated series, but that story is the best one. Where his wife is frozen, and oh god, I'm doing puns like him. Well, anyways, his wife is frozen, and he's has to free her, and he's just trying to find a cure before she can be free from the ice. And because if she comes out, she's going to die to her disease, whatever it is. It's always different. So yeah, and it's just ice puns everywhere, and that's all it is. That's all the movie is. And there's Batgirl and Batman. It's certainly it's charming, and I don't know, like it works very well on characters with like Peter Parker especially, just how he's not perfect, and he's not supposed to be perfect. And they really highlight that, how he is a good person, but he just doesn't make the right decisions all the time, and how that eventually gets his uncle killed, and how he goes about that the wrong way, seeking revenge. And it also shows that he doesn't really blame himself immediately. But what's Green Goblin's motivation in this movie? The villain in the movie doesn't have a good motivation, and that should be the movie should have been over there. But no, he keeps going out for to stop Spider-Man. Like the Green Goblin tells Norman that he needs to stop Spider-Man. But why? Like he already did what he wanted to do. Like is he going to stop him again? Not if like what's the point? What's the point? Like he didn't stop him the first time. Like whatever. It's a good movie. But that villain motivation just really brings it down. And it's also a little too campy sometimes, but it's still fun. It's still a good watch. It's still an amazing movie, and it led to Spider-Man 2, which is S tier. No question, no doubt. S tier. This movie is amazing. Unlike The Amazing Spider-Man, where Peter Parker is given an actual challenge to go through. He actually doubts himself, and it shows. He has some kind of... It's not explained, the condition, but does it have to be? Like, I feel like if they actually did explain what was going on with him thoroughly, it would have been boring, and it would just want to waste time. I wouldn't want to see that. But just that whole cycle of his life, just him figuring out who he is and if he really wants to be a hero after all, and just showing every single struggle. Like it just took what this one showed, and it exemplified Peter Parker's responsibilities as a hero and as a person, and it showed the toll that it took on his life, even more than the first one ever could. And it actually takes away his powers to show him how much he actually wants to be a hero. How he's not just the kind of guy to stand by. Whenever somebody's getting beat up and he chooses to eat a hot dog, you know that he really it shows him as being cold-hearted. But like I feel like there's an actual subtext to that. And that whole little montage of him just walking around the city without his powers, just pretending to have a normal life. You can see that it really wants to be active. He doesn't... That's not what he really wants. And eventually in the end of the movie, he does get his powers. And the villain does have motivation, but it's also kind of flimsy. But this one makes up for it a lot more than the first one did, where Doc Ock is a close friend to Peter. Well, I mean, that's also kind of exactly the same as Norman. But he's a close friend. He tries to prove his scientific mind. He creates I forget what it is, but it's some kind of infinite power source, and he makes mechanical arms, which why not just... Well, it's never explained. It's just like, oh yeah, I have mechanical arms, because of course I do. I'm not going to operate this thing by myself. But they just kind of... Like, it's a matter of fact. Like, of course I have mechanical arms. Like, no. It doesn't make sense there. And then he goes crazy. They somehow manipulate his mind and make him do the thing again. To be like, no, y'all all thought it was Spider-Man who messed this up. I'll prove it to you. But, you know, it's a good movie. And it never really disappoints me. There are hardly any flaws to it, and it's near perfect, especially on the first viewing. If you try to pick it apart, you can, but why would you? Why would you do that? Spider-Man 3 is D tier. I wouldn't say it's F tier. I would almost say it's C tier. But it's D tier because, I mean, this is why it's there. It's not F tier and it's not C tier, so it's D tier. Because, like, okay, I want to address the elephant in the room, which is the dancing scene where he basically has a montage just strolling through the city, doing like hit, changing out his clothes, wearing all black, and trying to pick up girls by snapping at them and doing a little dance. I like that scene. I feel like it works for the movie, especially for the trilogy and what it's been building up. So it's not really that bad. I feel like it works. And okay, the black suit could have been handled better, and it certainly was rushed. But I mean, I don't think it's like Sam Raimi didn't want to do it anyways. So it was kind of a second thought. Like he wanted Sandman. He didn't want Venom. He was like, Venom? No. And then the studio said, yes, Venom. So he had to do it. He was backed in the corner, didn't have any choice, and that's what he ended up doing. So he was stuck with Venom, and he rushed it along. He did a good job with what he did, especially like Eddie Brock. He made his own Eddie Brock. And a lot of people are going to be upset because it's not the right Eddie Brock. It's not like the actual Eddie Brock from the comic book, and he's not a big jock, but I feel like it works as a kind of dark Peter Parker, where everything Peter Parker is, he's also, but just like a dark opposite of him. Like Peter Parker's a photographer, Eddie Brock is a photographer. Peter can't get the girl, Eddie can't get the girl, and those two things really work off each other pretty well, and it makes for a good story. But if you're turned off by just not being accurate to the comic, I would understand that, because like it's always a risk whenever you do that, because if you do something wrong, it's just not going to work, because you would have just been better sticking out to the source material, even if the source material wasn't what you wanted. But it's not bad. It's not that bad. I certainly like it more than Batman Returns, but it's not C tier. So I think D tier really works the best for it. Venom. Might as well talk about Venom while we're at it. This is D tier. It's not F tier, because I do like this movie. I liked watching it. Tom Hardy did a good job as Venom, as Eddie Brock, an actual Eddie Brock this time, and he worked. But the movie was just bland and boring outside of Eddie Brock and Venom. Like, I already forgot the villain's name. What was it? I'm trying to think here. Riot, yeah, like Riot. Terrible villain. Didn't make any sense. And all this movie really tried to do was set up a sequel. And I hate movies that just try to set up sequels, because you could just make this movie good instead of trying to make the next movie good. So it's worth the watch just for Tom Hardy and him and Venom. But other than that, this movie has nothing. I think Spider-Man 3 is like a high D, and then this is like a middle D, and this is a low D, just to give you like a scale to work with. Fantastic Four. D tier. It's good, you know. It has its moments, but if you cannot watch it, just don't watch it, because it's way too campy for its taste. Like, it doesn't work. Like, hardly anything about this movie is good, other than sometimes whatever they get a good joke off, and like the source material's silly, but they really didn't even try to make it serious at all. Like, it's not something you should care about. Like, this movie was made to make the rights and keep them, instead of giving off to a good studio who can make a good movie. This was a cash cow that just wanted to make sequels like this one, which is F tier because it's not worth the watch. Nothing about this is good. Everything about it is wrong. I hate this movie with all my heart and soul. Everything this movie did okay, this movie did 10 times worse. and it's just milking this cash cow that doesn't exist. Like this one, which is F tier and terrible, and why would you make this? It's boring as hell. At least this one I could chuckle a few things at, but here it's just a pain to sit through. Why are you making me do this? I hate this. I hate I have to watch that movie and rank it on this list. It's terrible. Stop making this movie if you can't do it right. Anyways, now that I had that rant about Fantastic Four and why it doesn't work, let me talk about something that does work, like an animated movie for once. So, Planet Hulk, A tier. I took the comic, and it fitted into a 2-hour story that didn't rush anything. It kept it simple. It didn't say why he was going exactly, which it didn't have to. It just said, "You're dangerous. Get out of here." And it's like, oh, okay. And they do the good job with the Gladiator Hulk stuff. Meek is in it. He's not the big bad like it was in the comic, but it still works. Hulk doesn't have a kid in this one, but I mean it's only one movie, and with its one movie, I think does a good job just evolving the character of the Hulk and making him more than just this big angry green giant that just says smash and then breaks stuff. So I think this movie really helped a lot with the reputation of the Hulk, unlike this one, which, oh, I mean, I feel like it's forgivable on some parts. No, it's F tier. Fuck it. F for fuck it. It's terrible. Don't watch this. Never watch this. If you watch this, I'm sorry, because it has the same problem this does, where it's just boring and it doesn't even do things accurately. It makes him like this movie has the same kind of problem that the Amazing Spider-Man does, where it could have happened to anybody, is what it should be. It's like, you're not special. This power, this curse, it's yours, but it could have been anybody else's. This one, it's like his father experimented on him, and this radioactivity that only affected him in this particular way, and this I guess it's like a other personality has always been in him, and it doesn't work because it's like he's a chosen one, like in the Amazing Spider-Man, which is C tier. No, it's not that good. It's D tier. It's almost F tier, but it works. Like it tries to make Spider-Man dark and gritty, to do something different, and no other reason. It was a terrible idea. I'm trying to put this into words. Andrew Garfield is quite clearly the worst Spider-Man, but I think they made it work a bit. Just with what he had. Like, him and Gwen Stacy is certainly the best part of the movie. Because the story sure isn't. It's just, I'm a big green lizard to make my arm grow out. Hey, if everyone's a big green lizard, everyone's arm can grow out. And he makes only a small amount of people big green lizards that eventually stop being big green lizards anyways. And all he accomplishes is killing the captain of the police force. It's not a good movie. And this one goes out of its way to tell us that Peter Parker's a chosen one. Like, his father has a message. It's like, Peter, this spider blood or whatever, this thing I've been experimenting on, it only works on you. And they go out of this way to tell us this because Harry needs a cure, but it won't work on him because, like, he's not a chosen one, because we can only have one chosen one, because Spider-Man's story has always been a chosen one story because we said so, and that's all it's been. That's all it's ever going to be. And a story that contradicts that really powerfully is Into the Spider-Verse, where it basically does a really good job saying anyone can be Spider-Man. It doesn't matter who you are. If you have these powers, you can do these things, then you should do these things. And if you can't do these things, you can still be a hero in your own way. You don't have to be Spider-Man to be a hero. And it does a really good job of saying that and being a good movie in that. Personally, this is my favorite superhero movie, just because of how well it does it. Miles Morales, in the comics, is a bad character. Here, I think they kind of fixed him. Not too much. They just kind of made the parts that I don't like about him kind of in the background. And his extra spider powers, like the Venom Strike and the invisibility, they're there, but they're only there for that last boss fight. And it just works really well, especially with all the different Spider-Mans it brings in. Brings in Spider-Gwen, Peter P. Parker, which is just old Spider-Man. And it just does everything right. I can't think of a single thing it did wrong. Can you think of a single thing it did wrong? Because I just don't know. It all seems right to me. It just works. So I think what I have now is fair. Let me just look through it and see if anything needs to move. Nah, this works. This works. Everything's where it should be. I wouldn't with anything else. So let me talk about another Batman movie. Like Batman Begins. S tier. This movie did what this movie did. And it made superheroes way more serious than they were thought to be. Like X-Men was a big deal because that's what it did. But this movie took that to a whole new level and also didn't have to be like Blade, which just tried to make everything dark and edgy and like a goth style. But these two movies right here, they set a whole other standard that this movie matched. Like it's basically if this movie had like split into two parts, you would get this one and this one. They're like the two extremes of Batman the movie from the 80s. So this one takes like the serious tone, the clever story, and all that, along with The Dark Knight, and puts that on its own side. And Blade takes the serious goth stuff, the cool edginess about it, and just all the awesomeness, and makes Blade and Blade 2, which are just amazing movies. Why Blade is in the A tier, it just doesn't work as well. Like Blade 2, looking at Blade 2, I see everything this one did wrong. Whereas like Batman Begins and The Dark Knight are more debatable. Like you can't really pick one and say this one did this thing worse than the other, or this one did this better. They're both like, you can pick either one to be your favorite, but Blade 2 is just clearly superior than Blade. But these two movies are both amazing, and neither one did really anything wrong. So I'll just move on to The Dark Knight Rises while I'm on The Dark Knight, and put this in C tier because same problem as Superman Returns, where it's just too long and it gets boring, and the twist at the end just doesn't really work because it's Batman. I don't know. His story is not really supposed to end, and I think with that part they did a good job. But he wasn't Robin at first. It's like he showed him the cave, and now he's gonna become Batman. But what if he didn't? Like, how? Like, what if he just? I don't know. It doesn't really make sense to me. And it seems like the whole movie was just building up for nothing. So like, it's No Man's Land and Nightfall. And those two stories don't really fit well together. Like Gotham did it the same thing in season 5 and it didn't work well then. But I mean, it concludes the story that this one and this one set up. And you know what? I feel like what it is Christopher Nolan was under a lot of pressure because when Batman came out, there was no standard other than this one. He made his own movie, and he wrote his own story, and then after that, they were pretty confident it was going to get a sequel, so they had him write a sequel. And at the time, there was no hype to go off of. Like, no one was super hyped about Batman Begins because not many saw it yet. So by the time everyone saw it, he already finished the script, and we already had an amazing script. And now, after The Dark Knight, he had to write The Dark Knight Rises, which is... You're under a lot of pressure there. Like, everyone's seeing it, they're expecting the best of you, they're expecting this movie to be amazing. It's better than anything they've ever seen before. and it just doesn't match that. But it's a good movie. Like if you're watching all these movies, say it's certainly worth it, but it's skippable. I guess I would say that. Like The Last Stand or Superman Returns. So yeah. The Lego Batman movie. B tier. It's fun. It doesn't do a lot with it. I certainly like the obscure references to all the superheroes, but that's just really a joke. This movie is just a joke. Like, if I had the Lego movie up here, ranking it as quality, I'd put that in the A tier, and this one just doesn't do that. It really just is a list of jokes. Like an episode of Family Guy for Batman, and a kid's episode of Family Guy for Batman. Not all the jokes land. Like, some of them are meant for, like, really young kids, which I understand. That's what the movie's made for. But you gotta criticize what it did wrong, and that's what it did wrong. It just didn't work there. The Wolverine. Well, actually, no, I haven't reviewed X-Men Origins yet. So X-Men Origins Wolverine would be, I think either A tier or S tier, because it's just a really Wolverine. Just did him perfectly, and just because, like, I don't know, it's just an amazing movie. There's nothing wrong with it. Everything about it is right, and it's perfect. The CG looks amazing. It was a really good choice going with CG Claws, because that way it looks more out of this world and it doesn't look like it's actually there. Because, well, oh man, I'm sorry. It's F tier. Anyways, the Wolverine is certainly an improvement, but I wouldn't call it a success, because it's still kind of bland and boring. Like, it does all the samurai stuff, like all that's from the comics, and it works really well, but like they could have done so much more. And like, he has bone claws at the end of the movie, and then by this one, Days of Future Past, he's all fine and good. So I don't get what they're doing there. I feel like this was supposed to be the last one before Logan, but it just doesn't work for me. It certainly is better than Batman Returns or Spider-Man 3, but to me it's not good. Let me do an animated movie for another time. The Dark Knight Returns, S tier. It took the comics and it just basically adapted that the best way it could. It's near perfect. By the way, this is both part 1 and part 2. I could do both of them, but they're both S tier to me. Like, they both work on their own and together. So it only makes sense to just in both on one. So yeah, it's S tier. Takes the graphic novel, which is perfect, and it just makes a movie, which translates very well onto an animation. So because of that, it's an S tier. Big Hero 6. B tier. It's not bad. I really like it. It's a fun movie. I would put this in like low B tier, and then this one is high B tier. So like, these are the two standards. Actually, no, I'm moving this down. Never mind. I'm sorry. It's too low. It's not bad. You can watch it and have a good time, but it's not really good. So Big Hero 6, good movie, good story, good heart. You will cry. If you don't cry, you are a heartless human being. But just because you cry doesn't make it a good movie. So it's a B tier. What's stopping it from A tier is, never mind. It's A tier. I don't know what I'm saying. It's just not special. Like, what about it do I remember? Is the villain was bland. His plan didn't make any sense. But the heart in there is enough to bring it all the way up to A tier. The villain is not enough to bring it all the way down to B. I mean, it might be. Like, I think it's good A or B tier, not S tier. There's too much wrong with it for to be S tier. So it's A tier or B tier, whatever you want. I don't care. Do it. What am I here for? Kick-Ass 2. D tier. It's just not good. Not as good as it could have been. So it only makes sense for it to be in the D tier because like Kick-Ass was basically taking the comic, putting it on a film. Kick-Ass 2 was basically taking a comic, shoving it up your ass, putting it on a film. So like I don't understand. Like this one was also just a pointless sequel, which didn't need to happen, and wasn't any fun to watch. Like this was just a sequel to a comedy, basically, where like Zoolander and Zoolander 2, where they just take all the same jokes and just put it in the same movie and pretend like it's something new. The story doesn't even work there. Like the heart's gone. It's just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. At all. I don't know what to say. It's been a while since I've seen it anyways. I just know I didn't like it. Sorry. Maybe as far as I know, maybe it could be S tier. I don't know. I just know I didn't like it. X-Men First Class, A tier. This is like X-Men if it was gooder. I'm gonna say gooder. If you don't like that, you can leave a dislike. Do whatever you want. But yeah, it's definitely in A tier. Just because this is actually accurate to the comics and to the classic TV show everybody liked. So, despite this is what I'm trying to get at is the more accurate you are, typically, you're gonna make a better movie. Because the comic's popular for a reason. Not everything on the page transfers perfectly, so you have to make some minor. Days of Future Past, same thing. I say it's almost the same quality. Hugh Jackman pulls an amazing performance. Basically crosses the last universe with this new one that they just made, and it passes the torch in a way, which leads to X-Men Apocalypse. I don't know. You know what? I'm gonna make the C tier because a lot of the same characters do keep their same charm. Like, Beast is still good. I don't understand what's going on with him and his little serum, but it's still there. Charles, Magneto, all the characters still have the same heart, and like Magneto is amazing in this, absolutely amazing. So that is certainly stopping it from being in D tier. But the story is terrible, the villain is terrible, and Jean Grey is just wasted. They didn't set up anything. That they're just going to do the whole thing in Phoenix, which is terrible. But Logan, on the other hand, is easily a S tier, whatever you want. Because let me see, it's pretty much perfect. It sends off a character in a very respectful way. Ends his story. This is a violent man who's been living in a violent world, just absolutely tearing through everything. Violence was his first option, his first answer to everything. It works perfectly. Like, he fights to the very end, and like X-23 makes this movie work. Just the heart that he has, the love that he has for her. He basically sees her as a daughter, and he treats her like a daughter. And also, not only is that this an ending for Wolverine, but it's ending for Professor X too. At least Patrick's Professor X. So in that regard, I just think it's amazing. It's a amazing, near perfect ending for all these characters. And also, like, this is what I'm saying. Like, there's nothing that it did wrong. It takes the story and does a very accurate representation of it. It's not perfect. There's a lot wrong with it, a lot missing that they couldn't do, but it has the same essence. It has the same kind of idea of it, and it works with the character. Because Old Man Logan isn't the same Logan that we have here in this X-Men universe. It's a completely different story for a different character. And for the Logan that we do have in this universe, they adapted it in a pretty fitting way. and it works very well. So, yeah. And I've been avoiding all the MCU films, which is just noticed. Let me break that trend. The Incredible Hulk. It's C tier. You can watch it, you can enjoy it, you can have a good time, but it's just not a good movie. It it's not a bad movie, but Abomination, like, these villains are terrible. All of these villains are terrible. He's just like, he's sad. You can relate to him, but I don't I don't get it. I'm sorry. These movies are just. I'm just trying to get all the bad ones out of the way. Let me do that. Let me do that. All the bad ones out. Suicide Squad, D tier. The characters are good. Again, the story is just bad. Not even like Rick Flag and his relationship to Enchantress doesn't work for me. It's very rushed. Everything's rushed. El Diablo is rushed. They could have done a much more heartfelt thing with Deathstroke and Harley Quinn, but no, they just rush it. Joker, I don't think is that bad as people say he is, but he's not good. He doesn't work in this movie. He's just kind of there for attention because, like, hey, that's the Joker. It will sell more tickets, and it did, but it's just not good. Another bad one. Green Lantern, F tier, terrible. The CG suit, I'm just gonna get that out. I like it because it works. Everything he makes is a construct, and I feel like his construct needs to look consistent. So either everything is practical, or everything is CG, just to keep the consistency of it. Because I like the CG suit. It makes sense to me. It makes sense. But yeah, the story with the villain, like, I don't even remember what it is. It's Captain America, F tier, terrible. Yeah, that's all it is. Can you pull over for a minute? I think I'm gonna be sick watching this movie, and then I'm just gonna steal your DVD player, take the movie with me, burn it, never have to watch it again. Problem solved. Woohoo! Thor: The Dark World, F tier, absolutely terrible. Um, yeah, you know what? No, let me put it in D tier, cause I do feel like Loki is a good character, and he really, any movie he's in, I just feel like having Loki in here, and him and Thor, his relationship with him, it just really makes up for everything wrong with it. But other than that, it's a bland story. It's a dark story. Like, I don't mean like dark, like edgy dark. It's just like in the dark world. It's meek and it's gloomy, and it doesn't work for this movie. That rhymed, but like everything just kind of falls apart whenever they do all that with the ether, and it's an Infinity Stone movie, and that's all it's. That's the only reason it's there for. It's the only movie with the ether, so I feel like they had nothing, like no ideas for the ether, so that they just put it in this one. They said we had to do it. This is the only option. I'm sure there's a bit to that, but yeah. Ghost Rider, D tier. It just doesn't. There's also Ghost Rider: The Spirit of Vengeance. So let me talk about that. I haven't seen it. That's why it's not on here. I don't want to rank it if I haven't seen it. So I heard that it's just as good as this one, which isn't that good, but if you're just bored, this movie works. It's exciting. It's flashy, and it's cool. It's cool. I'll say that it's cool, but cool doesn't mean it's a good story. Doesn't mean it's a good movie. You can just watch it and it's cool. This is almost an F. Okay, like, you know what? No, it's a D tier. I'm not doing that. It's a cool movie. You can watch it and have fun, but don't expect anything deep. Okay, so let me do Man of Steel. No, A tier. It's A tier. I feel like Man of Steel is certainly A tier. I'm a big fan of Smallville, and turns out Zack Snyder is too, because a lot of things they do here is basically almost exactly like it was done in Smallville. They took all the good parts of that and adapted it here. They took all the good parts of his origin story in the comics and just brought it in here. The only thing I don't like is the thing whenever he's traveling the world, and like he leaves home after his dad dies, and that part just didn't work for me at all. I don't like that. But other than that, it's a great movie. Like it really captures the essence of Superman, how he's just trying to save everybody, but he can't. Not all the time. People say like all the violence and all the destruction he caused. He didn't do anything. That was all Zod. Superman was there trying to save everybody. He just learned to fly. Think about that. People say, oh, he could have flown Zod away, but like at the same time, Zod also just learned how to fly, but like they both can't fly, not well. Like Zod is just tearing everything apart, and what's Superman supposed to do? He's just trying to take out Zod. He's trying to eliminate the threat, and Zod just doesn't care. He's gonna burn through every building he can. And Superman, if like he's not gonna leave Zod because he's in a building. What's Superman supposed to do? Just take the elevator? Like, oh, I can't fly through that window. Like, no, he has to go in there. Like I don't get why people are so on that about all the destruction that they think Superman caused. But if you look at it, he hardly does anything to hurt the city. He's just there trying to stop Zod. He's trying to get him into the air because that's where he has the advantage. That's where all the buildings are. There are a few scenes where you can debate that he caused damage, especially during the "Don't hurt my mother" or "Don't threaten my mother," where he goes through a giant nuclear factory and just blows that up. Like, yeah, that was totally on him, but at the same time, it was super emotional, and he didn't really think about it. He wasn't trying to save the day. He was just pissed off. So that was all it was. Man of Steel gets an A tier. BVS, B tier. I don't think this movie is anywhere near as bad as people say. You know what? C tier. It doesn't work as B tier. It's too high for it. But still, it's not as bad as people say. The story does work. Just basically, it could have been a lot better. And I think that's a fair reason to hate this movie. But I think it works, especially for Batman's character. For Superman's character, it's a little out of place. But it's a nice risk to take. It's not the first time it's been taken like this. Like it's been done in the comics, been done in Smallville. Like you're really, they're just pointing the finger at Superman. Like, you need to be held accountable, and they're telling him that everything is his fault, and he really takes that to heart. Like he feels that he feels that way about himself. Like, I could have saved that person, but I didn't. And it's true, he didn't save those people. But I don't think like that's a fair judgment to make on him. Okay. Iron Man. I'm going to say this is A tier. Because it's an amazing movie. It's certainly very much worth the watch, but I don't think it's almost S tier. It's very close, but the villain, it's the same problem with these villains that the MCU keeps bringing out. How they're just all bland, well, almost all. I'm not gonna say all of them. That's a generalization. I don't like those. I don't like painting with a broad brush. So let me just say this villain is very bad, like a lot of those in the MCU, where his motivation doesn't move the story along, and it's just kind of like, well, actually, no, it does, but it's only there to move the story along. Like, you don't understand why he's doing what he's doing when there are obvious other solutions to it that he could have taken. So yeah. Ant-Man. B tier. It's not that good. It was just kind of there. I feel like it could have been a lot better. Because, you know, It's a B movie, even though he's an ant. I think it's a B movie. But the Wasp are the same thing as bees, so this goes in the D tier because it basically does the same thing. The villain isn't as cool. Like Ghost, what's Ghost there for? She's just a failed experiment again. Like, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. It feels wasted. Like, they could have done a lot with the Wasp. Like, she was the first leader of the X-Men. Like, obviously not this Wasp, not the Wasp that is the Wasp in the majority of this movie, but she's still an amazing character that takes up most of the time. Like, she started the X-Men. She's like, in the Wasp they do have the standard Marvel formula of me, a lot like Captain Marvel. Like, these two movies are about on the same level. I think Captain Marvel's a bit worse because at least Ant-Man has the advantage of it already had Ant-Man established and has a few funny jokes here because we know the character and everything makes sense. Nothing is too surprising. We can all expect what he's going to do and everything fits. But with Captain Marvel, she's new and she doesn't really make sense in the universe. Like, they say that she's already been there, but like, where was that shown before other than the pager? That's the only thing we have, and everything in this movie contradicts it. Because of that, I almost want to put it in the F tier, but I'm not that cold-hearted. It's D tier. So Iron Man 2. I, I'm putting it in C tier just because we need more things than C tier. Like, the whole thing with the drones, it didn't work. I'm sorry, I haven't seen this one in a while, but I just know it certainly is better than like Captain Marvel or Ant-Man and the Wasp or The Amazing Spider-Man, but it just doesn't work. It doesn't work as well. Like Iron Man 3, like it's like you don't like watching a drunk guy. Like, it's not the same thing. Iron Man 3 is B tier. I think this one's debatable. Like, people say like Iron Man 3 and Iron Man 2, like these are like one of the lowest movies in the MCU. But like, not one of, but they're a few of the lowest movies in the MCU, but they're still pretty good. Both of them. Like, Iron Man 2 is not that bad. It's D tier after all. But Iron Man 3, I just think did a better job. It's more true to his character. It tries to answer that question, like, honestly, from the Avengers, where Captain America tells him, "Take off the suit. What are you?" And here, he loses his suit, and he basically MacGyvers his way through this, and it's pretty badass, and I just really like this movie because of that. So, because it shows us Tony Stark. It doesn't show us Iron Man. It shows Tony Stark. And that's something different. Thor. This is definitely D tier. No. I'm very... I'm second guessing myself a lot. It's C tier. I don't know. I'll decide later. Loki. Other than that, it's okay. Like, it didn't sell me Chris Hemsworth as Thor. It was an okay movie. I liked it. A tier. Wonder Woman. Well, this one is actually the first woman superhero movie. It wasn't Captain Marvel. I heard some things about the Supergirl movie, but I like to pretend that one doesn't exist. I heard some things about a Catwoman movie, but Catwoman's an X-Men, so I don't know what you're talking about there. Yeah, I didn't rank. Obviously, I didn't rank every. Like, I don't have Spirit of Vengeance, but Captain Marvel tried to take a lot of the thunder from Wonder Woman, but shut up, take your place. You're second, okay? Second. Captain America: The First Avenger. B tier. Fun watch. Good superhero movie. I liked it. It was the first MCU movie I saw in the theater. certainly worth it. Came right before Avengers, and it did a good job building up to that, with Nick Fury showing up in the end. Bucky Barnes, amazing setup to. You know what? Let me stop talking about this. I want to get into the S tier, which is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Amazing movie, number one. Fight me, it's the best. Okay, best MCU movie by far. There is no question. Just like everything that they set up in Captain America, the first Avenger, was paid off here, and it did a really good job with Bucky Barnes and his character and his relationship with Steve Rogers. Like, he's been brainwashed, but he still knows this person. He knows him like a brother, and he just feels it in his soul. And I feel like that's kind of cheesy now saying it out loud, but it works. It's a good movie. So, Thor Ragnarok, A tier. It's not perfect. It's really not perfect. I really don't like. Well, I mean, no. It's almost S tier. What's holding it back is Hela. She wasn't the best villain. I feel like to have an S tier, you need, like, look at Batman, Joker, amazing, Doc Ock, amazing. I mean, there were so many characters in this one that I feel like it doesn't matter. Ra's al Ghul, amazing. Joker, amazing. Wolverine was the villain, so amazing. Winter Soldier, amazing. Here, Hela's is kind of bland, and it's an ending to a trilogy. I feel like it's almost S tier. I just, personally, I can't put it there. Doctor Strange is D tier. It's just not there. I can't put it in any higher. That's what it is. That's what it is to me. Dormammu, I've come to bargain. It's the only memorable part about it. Maybe the cape. Just in the origin film that it basically just rips off Iron Man. It doesn't do anything special for me. That is my honest opinion. If you disagree, okay. Let's get all the Marvel ones out of the way. Black Panther, B tier. I don't think it's A tier. Killmonger is an amazing villain, character-wise, but the fight scene, the last fight scene, not the first fight scene, with him and T'Challa, those two fights, that fight scene was amazing. I feel like there's not a good payoff to it. Like, it's just another CG fight that looks like Dragon Ball Z. It doesn't work. Guardians of the Galaxy also runs in here. Just not. It's not an A tier. It just. The villain is also bland. Like, the Power Stone, it's another stone movie. This is the first one with the Power Stone. I think it's the only one with the Power Stone. If I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong on that, but I mean, it's the Power Stone movie, and that's all it really is. It's just a MacGuffin, and that doesn't make it bad by any means. It's still B tier, but it could have been so much better if it actually had a villain, other than like Ronan. Volume 2 is only worse. It's not any better. So, I don't think it's C tier. Well, you know what? I'll put it in C tier just to, because I can't have Thor in C tier. Actually, there. I feel like this is better. Yeah, this is better. Okay. So that's pretty much every MCU movie. Let's go to Civil War. B. It's not. It's not Winter Soldier. I wanted it to be like Winter Soldier. Like, it's the Russo brothers again, but the Russo brothers stuff is always good. It's a good movie. It's a good watch. I don't feel like it deserves an A, because like, they have to keep everybody alive, And I feel like they could have killed Rhodey off, but no. There's basically the only consequence is the team's falling apart, which is a big consequence, especially in the grand scheme of things. But on this movie and on this movie alone, that's nothing. Like, nobody died. Captain America didn't kill anybody. Well, get anybody killed. Um, it's a civil war. Somebody should die. You can't have everybody come out all happy. And Rhodey loses his legs, and by the end of it, it's like he's fine. Nothing happened. Oh, like, I'm just using robot legs now. Okay. Like, what's the point? Like, it doesn't work. There's no stakes lost. Nobody, at least here, Batman v Superman, Superman died. Like, sure, he's coming back, but again, that's in the grand scheme of things. If you look at this on its own, he's dead. By the end of it, he's dead. This conflict that Batman and Superman had, instead of being able to get along, it cost them Superman's life. If they just got along, all this wouldn't have happened. They would have stopped Doomsday. They would have been able to use Kryptonite before, and maybe just stop Lex Luthor right at the beginning, before even Doomsday even appeared. But no, they had to measure dicks. Justice League. D tier. I feel like Joss Whedon messed the movie up. It's not his fault. I don't think he's a bad director because of it. I just think that his style doesn't match with Zack Snyder's. Because this was like Superman 2 if it was done worse. So it doesn't. It's pretty. No, it doesn't work. It's like, I don't know. I feel like it could have been better if it was just Zack Snyder. Like the Snyder Cut. I'm sorry, I'm not going to moan about it. But I feel like even if it's not better, it would feel more consistent. Because here with the Whedon Cut, it's all disjumbled. It's all doesn't feel like that feels like Zack, but this feels like Snyder. The first scene is Zack's scene, but it's Joss's music. Like, nothing fits to me. It all just doesn't work. But, you know, it's serviceable. You can watch it. You can have a good time. I don't like it. Especially because of that director stuff. But it's unavoidable. What are you going to do? Avengers. A tier. Well, actually, no. Let me talk about this last. Because I want to get all these movies out, then talk about Avengers last. Spider-Man. Far From Home. C tier. It's good. You know what? No, fuck it. Let me put it B tier. B tier. It's really good. It doesn't feel like Peter Parker to me, but it certainly feels like a Spider-Man. It feels like a Spider-Man movie, and that's all you really need. Anybody could wear the suit, but I just can't get over the fact that I don't see Peter Parker, and I don't like how they keep him in high school. Like, that's not who he is. I don't like the Ultimate Comics. I never liked the Ultimate Comics. I liked them at the beginning, but then they started being bad, and I just want classic Spider-Man, grown-up adult, like in the Tobey Maguire movies, or Peter B. Parker, or just take him out of high school. This one was smart enough to graduate him right away, okay? Not this one. Not this one. This one graduated him right away, but, you know, this one did first, so shut up. It doesn't work. You have to get him out of high school because it doesn't feel right when he's in there. I do like the portrayal of Flash as the bully, like just an actual bully, not someone who puts you up against a locker and says, "Give me your lunch money." It's an actual bully who says, "I say penis, you say Parker." So it works, but just get him out of the high school. You gotta get him out of the high school. It doesn't work there. That's not where he belongs. Okay, so Aquaman. A for Aquaman. It's a good movie. It could have been a lot better. I feel like the underwater world that this movie's tackling. You know what? Let me move it down. It's B tier. It's not that good. It's a good movie. Not that good, though. It could have been so much better. But I really like it because it kept everything simple, and you're dealing with Aquaman here. Nobody likes him. it's not nobody likes him, but everybody thinks he's a joke. He's a joke character, and you really had to move that stigma away, like Tim Burton did for Batman. So, with that, I think he did a really good job just moving that out of the way. And that came after, well, Shazam came after, and this movie is S for Shazam, absolutely amazing. It's that twist at the end. I don't want to spoil it for you if you haven't seen it, but it works so well. It absolutely makes the movie. It's by far the best part, and you like Billy Batson and Shazam. Oh, not Shazam, Captain Marvel. Sorry, they work hand in hand. Like they're almost the same exact person. Like whenever he's Billy or Captain Marvel, they feel like the exact same person, and that just works. Like some people say, like he doesn't, and I can kind of see that, but I feel like that comes down to the fact that, like when he's Shazam, he feels like a superhero. Like that's what it's supposed to do. Um, so he feels more whimsy, and he feels like I can fly, I can do whatever I want. What are you gonna do? Stop me? And that works. That works for it. So yeah, I feel like this movie was amazing. The villain was pretty good. It wasn't bad. He had a motive, and it was good. Like it was simple. It was a simple movie, and I guess S is for simple. Let's do another animated one. Last two. Not Justice League Flashpoint. Takes the comic almost page per page and puts it in a movie. Of course, there's a lot missing, but they keep it. They take the important parts, keep it there, and tell a great story. Because that's what all you really have to do. It's amazing, and they don't do it in one episode like CW's The Flash. So that's amazing. Batman Under the Red Hood, S tier. Absolutely, no questions asked. S tier for Batman. For Under the Red Hood. This movie tells an amazing story for Jason Todd, and this movie is by far the biggest reason why Jason Todd is so popular. Because of this movie and how honest they portray his character, of how relatable he is. Like, Batman, fucking kill somebody, pull out a gun, and shoot the Joker. And they really make you question Batman's motive, because for the longest time you should always be like, of course Batman's not going to kill him, that's the wrong thing to do, but is it? Like, killing the Joker would have saved Jason's life if he did it earlier. Like, what's so wrong about it? And it just brings up the right questions, and it's an amazing movie with amazing voice acting, amazing animation, and nothing about it is done poorly. It's a solid movie. Avengers, A tier. If I had made this in like 2013, it would have been S tier without a doubt. But looking at it now, it doesn't work that way. It's just kind of, again, simple is good, but trying to put this in the right words, like, because I know putting it anywhere outside of S tier is gonna upset some people, so I want to justify this and make sure you understand why. You know what? No, fuck it. Let me put it in S tier. It's S tier. Okay. I was trying to justify it, but now I'm just thinking like, no, no, it's S tier. No questions asked. It's S tier. Um, it's perfect. It's faithful to every single character in there. Loki's an amazing villain. It's not a random villain they just picked out of nowhere, and it's like, here you go. It's not Age of Ultron, where it's like, let me just take this random guy and make him the villain for you. No, it's they take an established character, make him more menacing, and he's the big bad. and that's the best way to go about it. Avengers, Age of Ultron, C tier. It's not it's not good. Sorry, I don't. Um, it's not. It's a bad movie. Well, I mean, it's bad compared to Avengers and all the other ones. Like, it's so boring. The villain is terrible to watch. He's bland and like, why is he even there? Like, and his humor, like, where does that come from? It makes no sense in the context of Ultron. Like, why is he cracking jokes every 5 seconds? It gets annoying and it doesn't work. It makes him less menacing. Like, am I supposed to be scared of this guy? Honestly, it doesn't work for me. Avengers Infinity War is the reason why I wanted to put Avengers in A tier, because it doesn't belong. It's nowhere near the same level as Avengers Infinity War. Of course, like, Winter Soldier dwarfs this easy, but Infinity War is a perfect movie. The villain is one of the most essential parts to your movie. So mess that up, you can see that brings it down like a whole tier. Like, you don't have a good villain that keeps you out of S tier. Thanos is an amazing villain. He has perfect motivation, and he earns his win at the end. Absolutely. Like, the bad guy wins, but he earns it. He works for it. He knows what he wants, and he goes after it. He gets it. And that's just amazing writing. But then they kind of messed it up with Avengers Endgame, which I just think is good, but it's not that good. Like, it really isn't. People are like, I hear this all the time. Like, it's the culmination. They like that to use that word. I doubt anybody knows what it really means. Like, it's the culmination of all these movies. Like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Let me. Okay. So yeah, it's a culmination of all these movies. It deserves to be in here. Who cares? Okay? The other movies should only add to its quality. Avengers Endgame loses quality if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen all the other ones, it doesn't work. Okay, let me quickly answer the question. Why is Batman in S tier? Because for the longest time, it was the 60s Batman that everybody was watching. That was the stigma of just campy Batman, just jumping around, dancing, wearing a pink suit, all that. Like, he wasn't taken seriously. And the villain in this movie is absolutely amazing. Like, the Joker, the twist could kind of turn some people off. I can understand that. But I think it works for it, especially for Batman. Because, like, I don't like him finding out who his parents' killer is, but I feel like it's a perfect way to get justice and conclude his arc, which is why Batman Returns is down here in D tier, because it doesn't have the same weight. I feel like that's why I don't like it as much. But, you know, I feel like it's an S tier. I would understand if you say it's A tier, it's S or A tier, but, you know, I like it. I feel like it deserves that spot. So, Avengers Endgame, people like to say it's a culmination, but they only lose its quality if you haven't seen the other ones, okay? It makes no sense. I mean, I'm not gonna say that. It doesn't make any sense, but it's weak because it concludes all these arcs in a way where it doesn't set them up in its own movie. It sets them up outside, and it doesn't do anything in their own movie, in this movie, to build up to that, and it doesn't earn it. It's all done elsewhere. Like, that's fine to have a lot of it done elsewhere, but you need stuff in this one to make all that pay off. And I feel like it just didn't do that. It didn't deliver it. With Iron Man, well, actually no. With Iron Man, that was one of the great ones. They did that one really well. Captain America, I feel like he was done a real disservice here. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you haven't seen the other ones, it only loses its quality. People say just like people. I don't understand this. Why people just say judge it based on all the other ones before it, and if you add all that up, it's an S tier, and absolutely it is. But I'm not like that. I judge it like Infinity War is a perfect example. If you haven't seen the other ones, everything in that movie makes sense, and it's a culmination as well. You don't have to justify it saying it's a culmination. It just works better than it is. Than not than it is, but than Endgame does. And I feel like this tier list here makes the most sense. Um, because somebody complained about it. I'll move Batman down. I don't know. Maybe they're happy now. Are you happy now? But yeah, that's the tier list. And I don't have anything else to say other than hey,